The UFC continues on this Saturday with another fight night in July, and we are back at the Apex. Every time we get an Apex card, it seems like we're getting thrown in the corner for timeout, because this card is a rough one. Very, very rough one. Headlined by none other than Chihuihui's himself, Raul Rosas Jr. against Amanda Lemos. Just kidding. Verna Jandiroba. Where's she looking? Nobody knows. But she will be headlining a main event of a fight night. Good thing it's at the Apex, because, there's no chance in hell they would put this for anywhere else than the Apex. That's the reason they have the Apex. So they have these cards where they're like, yeah, we don't really have a main event. Let's just stick this in there so we can call it a main event. And we have another card, which I don't care. I mean, I'm a bitch about it, but don't care. Don't care, man. Like, I'll take the fights. We're going to go through, give you my early picks, my early thoughts for every single one of these fights on the card. But these are not official picks. If you wait till later in the week, I put out the official picks video, usually Wednesday or Thursday, and that is where I will track my picks, because these are early looks, okay? So I got to really dive in deeper throughout the week, and sometimes I flip, sometimes I stay the same. But this is for you guys that are eager to be looking at this card and want to get somebody's opinion. These are my opinions. So let's take a look. First fight of the night. Muhammad Usman and Thomas the Train Petersen, or as they call him, Thomas Jefferson on the Dana White Contender Series. This dude came into the UFC and lost his debut to Jamal Pokes. He lost a UFC fight to Jamal Pokes. That's a big out. That's a real big out. Muhammad Usman, always going to be living in that shadow of his brother. But honestly, I think this is a winnable fight for Muhammad Usman, because Muhammad Usman, at least at heavyweight, has some athleticism, some speed. Now, he doesn't always look very coordinated in there, but he has some athleticism. He is an athlete. He's an ex-football player. So he can move. Doesn't really look coordinated, but he can move. He's going to be a lot faster than Thomas the Train, stuffing his big old gullet there. I think he's from like Minnesota. Might have been a Minnesota wrestler. Both guys are wrestlers. But on the feet, I think Muhammad Usman actually has him outgunned, man. I think Usman, for how uncoordinated he is, at least he throws jabs. His jab is probably his best weapon. He throws a jab. It's pretty decent. Like, for a low-level heavyweight striker, his jab is pretty decent. On the other side, Thomas Petersen, not the case. He's slow. I think he's a southpaw. But he's a guy that wants to get you down to the ground and wrestle you. I don't know why he didn't really try to do that, like, repeatedly against Jamal Pokes in his debut, because he probably could have done it, but he just didn't do it. Maybe he was scared of gassing out, or maybe I think he shot, like, earlier on, didn't get it, and then he just went away from it. So he got into a striking match with Jamal Pokes, and he lost. Bad look there. I'm going to take Muhammad Usman for an early pick. He can go to the wrestling if he needs to. I think he's got more power, and overall, I think his striking is a lot better too. And he's a workhorse, man. He actually has pretty good cardio for a heavyweight, and he's not a guy that's really going to accept, like, bad positions. He's going to go for it, and even though he's not the most talented fighter out there, he's going to give you all he's got, and I like that. So I'll take Muhammad Usman. Up the card, we got Luana Carolina taking on Lucy Pudilova. Now, Lucy Pudilova was cut from the UFC before. She comes back. She picks up a win on a pay-per-view card. Can you just think about that, man? Can you think about that? Lucy Pudilova got cut from the UFC. She's a women's flyweight who has no name. She was on a pay-per-view card. I think that was 278, UFC 278. I think that was the Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman pay-per-view. She was on that pay-per-view card. That's insane. Either way, she's on the early prelims of the Apex card here, where she belongs, taking on Luana Carolina. I mean, Carolina's a decent striker. She's actually a pretty solid striker. She doesn't look as coordinated. Like, maybe it's just all these fighters don't look coordinated to me, but she doesn't really look that coordinated, but she's effective. She has decent takedown defense. I don't know why she was going for takedowns against Yulia Stoliarenko in her last fight. That was probably the dumbest thing she could have done, but she managed to survive and actually got a round 3 finish, which was pretty impressive, because Stoliarenko is a big girl for flyweight. She's a girl that used to fight at bantamweight. And the fact that Stoliarenko couldn't really have a ton of success on the ground, she had her in some submissions, but Karolina was able to get out of them. Pudilova isn't as big as Stoliarenko. Maybe she's a better striker than Stoliarenko because Stoliarenko got nothing to offer on the feet. Pudilova is decent on the feet, but she can't really respect it. Like, I don't think Karolina is really going to respect her striking, and she's probably going to take over on the feet, and if she can keep it on the feet, she wins this fight. So I'm taking Luana Karolina all day here. I think Pudilova she's just not that good. Like, she's okay. She's just really not that good, and I think Karolina has a much better ceiling, much higher ceiling. Pudilova is always going to be the okay all around, but Karolina's striking is good enough for me. I'll take her for a pick. Lloyd Radzhabov, Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden, to me, is one of the most underrated dudes, man. Because he's always underrated. He doesn't have a flashy style. Actually, it's not flashy whatsoever. It's actually very, very, very boring. But it is effective. Like, he's a guy on the feet that's not going to take any risk. He's going to fight behind his jab. He's not going to get hit with anything too crazy. And he's just smart about it. He will mix in the takedowns, and when he's on top of you, he has good control. Now, he's a guy that has a bunch of wins by submission, but doesn't really threaten him. He's a guy that's not going to go submission over position. He's just going to try to keep that position and win the minutes. Like Radzhabov, on the other hand, is a little bit more go for it type of fighter. Can gas out. He's 2-1 in the UFC. He's coming off a 3rd round knockout against Abdul Karim El Sawadi, a UFC debuter. I think he was an underdog there, which is pretty crazy. But he got a win there, round 3 KO. He's got some power in his hands. He's got good wrestling. Not the best gas tank. And he doesn't really threaten with a bunch of submissions on the ground. So on the feet, I mean, power edge goes to Radzhabov. But Trey Ogden's not a guy that's really going to give him a lot of opportunities. So I think on the feet, Trey Ogden can stay safe. He can mix in his own offensive wrestling if he needs to. And I think he could win this fight, man, just by boring decision. Like, Trey Ogden is just a guy that's going to lull you to sleep. Like, he was landing everything on Nicholas Mota, and Nicholas Mota couldn't even land a punch. And Nicholas Mota, for how bad he is, he's actually a pretty decent boxer. And he couldn't land anything on Trey Ogden. So I don't know that Loic's going to be able to land much. I mean, Loic is probably just going to have to go for it the entire time and try to just overwhelm Trey Ogden. And I don't know that he can do that nor keep that up for 15 minutes. So I'm going to go with Trey Ogden for an early pick. Miranda Maverick, Diony Barbosa. Now, Miranda Maverick's one of these girls where she's been around in the UFC for a good amount of time, where people know her name, especially if you you look at every single fight card and you know her name. You know that she's one of these girls that's usually pretty highly rated. But she's really just never really had that many good wins. I don't think she has really one good win. What's her best win? Her last win against Angela Lee? Andrea Lee? I think it's Andrea Lee, not Angela Lee. I'm thinking of Angela Hill. Andrea Lee, this is probably her best win. Other than that, she's really beating, I guess maybe you could say Jillian Robertson, but Jillian Robertson shouldn't be a flyweight. She just doesn't have that many good wins. So can she come in here and beat Diony Barbosa? Probably, because Diony Barbosa really ain't that good either. I mean, she's got a good ground game, doesn't have the best cardio, and her striking is okay. It's okay. Like, she actually showed some good glimpses of having good stand-up in her last fight against Ernesta Caraquete, but eventually she started to slow down, and she was whiffing takedowns, and Caraquete, for how big she is at flyweight, was starting to put it on her. I don't know that she won that fight. I thought she won the first round, probably won half of the second round, lost the other half, and then lost the third round. This one's weird to me because I don't think Barbosa is going to be having a ton of success getting Maverick to the ground. And I don't know that Maverick even wants to take Diony Barbosa to the ground. So it's probably, because both of these girls are wrestler grapplers at their base, but it could then just end up being a 15-minute standing striking battle. And if that's the case, I guess I got to go with Maverick because she's okay. And I think her gas tank is good enough. She was training to fight Tracy Cortez too, which is a similar style to Deani Barbosa, a girl that wants to take you down, who has okay stand-up. And I think Miranda Maverick should probably get a win here. So I'll take Miranda Maverick for an early pick. Moving on. We got Brian Kelleher and Cody Gibson. Cody Gibson got ragdolled his last time out against Miles Johnson. And I was kind of expecting that because Cody Gibson is a tall dude, but not a very physically strong dude. And you're going against Miles Johnson, who is very physically strong. And Cody Gibson he has a good amount of volume on the feet, but he doesn't really have big knockout power. On the other hand, we got Brian Kelleher, who doesn't even know. I don't even know where his career is at this point. He's just like taking fights for paychecks or like looking for some type of bonus because the guy's getting cracked by Cody. I mean, he's losing to good guys. He's getting cracked by Cody Garbrandt. He's losing to Batista and Umar Nurmagomedov. Those are his last 3 fights. Those are his last 3 losses. Other than that, he's beating up cans. So is Cody Gibson a can? Could be, because he's, one of those Ultimate Fighter guys that was a veteran, and they gave him another chance. He actually loses to Katona in the championship. They still sign him because it was a fun fight. I don't know. Overall, I think Cody Gibson should win this fight because he's probably the better striker, probably more durable, and he has a dangerous jiu-jitsu game on the ground as well. But I wouldn't really put too much confidence in it, man. Like, these two guys are old. They don't have much of a career, I don't have a high ceiling for their career. They're just taking fights to take fights. They're old. They're washed up. But they're going to get paychecks. And at least they're getting, guys that they could beat. I will say that. They're not matching them up with, these up-and-coming prospects. At least there's that. But I'll take Cody Gibson for the pick. Durability edge. Bigger dude. Longer strikes. He's got good volume. And he's got dangerous jiu-jitsu, so I'll take him. Moving on, we got Jung Young Lee taking on Haider Amil. And Haider Amil is still undefeated, but he is, 33 years old? So he's got signed off the Contender Series after a win by decision where he was having to defend takedowns over and over and over and over again. But he won. And then he comes into the UFC and gets a finish against Fernie Garcia, who had never been finished, which is pretty impressive. He's a dude that wants to walk you down, put a ton of pressure on you, mix in some takedowns, and throw heavy hands. Jung Young Lee is kind of the opposite. From what I picked up on Jung Young Lee, in his last fight, at least, against Blake Bilder, he was pretty reserved. Now, in his fights in the road to the UFC, he was looking for the finish a lot more. And he did kind of struggle at times when he would slow down. I think it was it Ija on the road to the UFC championship? He was getting taken down a bunch. He was getting controlled a bunch, which is alarming here because Haider Amil probably could do that. But on the feet against Blake Bilder in his debut, he looked pretty solid, but that's Blake Bilder. Blake Bilder has shown many times throughout his UFC career that he just doesn't really come to fight. He doesn't really come to try to finish you. He's just in there. He's just in there dancing around, looking good. He looks real technical. Looks like he could be a good fighter, but he just doesn't do anything in the cage. So I can't really rate Jung Young Lee's win against Blake Bilder that highly. On the other hand, I think Haider Amil, this is his time to go. This is his time to go. He's 33. He's coming to the UFC. He's picked up a win by finish. He's got to come in here and get another win. And Jung Young Lee has shown he can struggle against guys that want to pressure him, the guys that want to take him down. And I think the overall higher ceiling, because Jung Young Lee is pretty young. The higher ceiling is probably on Lee's side because he's got a lot of room to grow. But right now, I think Haider Amil can pick up a victory here if he comes with that pressure-heavy game plan, which I should expect him to because that's what he does nearly every fight. And if he does that, I like the more active fighter in Haider Amil, the guy that's going to go. And he has shown a pretty decent gas tank. And we're not at elevation this week. So I'll take Haider Amil for the early pick. To the feature prelim, we got Cody Durden and Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva, I mean, I like Bruno Silva, but I watch his fights. I'm like, damn, this guy's he's kind of small, man. He's kind of small. Like, Cody Durden ain't like the biggest flyweight out there, but he's like 3 inches taller. He's got like 2 or 3 inches in reach. Bruno Silva's a small dude. He's like 5'4", but he is powerful. He is powerful. He's explosive, and he has very good skills. He's just not a very active dude. I think his last fight was early of 2020. 23, so it's been probably over a year since his last fight. But it was a second-round submission where he knocked down Tyson Nam and then got his back and submitted him there. He's got really good skills, man. Cody Durden, on the other hand, he's a guy that just wants to dog it out. He just wants to dog it out. He wants to rack up takedowns. He will throw a good overhand. He can crack you on the feet. He's not a guy that is a fish out of water on the feet, but he can get hit, and he can get hit hard. He can also make mistakes. It's the dude that got flying triangled by Jimmy Flick. It's the dude that got dropped by Tagir Ulanbekov. It's not a good look, but he was on a nice little streak there before he lost to Tagir, and he looked like he was coming into his own. He takes that loss. We'll see how he bounces back here. I will take Cody Durden for an early pick, but this is one that I want to look more deeper into with Bruno Silva. I just think why I'm taking Cody Durden for an early pick. I think Cody has a relentless wrestling pace. He's aggressive, and from what I know about Bruno Silva, he's a guy that likes to make reads and kind of feel the guy out. I don't know that he's going to be able to do that, and he's small. He is small, and Cody Durden's actually a bigger dude in this spot, and I could see him just wet blanketing him and kind of big brothering him. Just from the early looks at this, but that's just what I see. So I'll take Cody Durden for an early pick. Move on to the main card. We got Choi and Bill Algeo. Bill Algeo, first fight back after his KO loss to Kyle Nelson, which was very early stoppage, but very alarming because, Kyle Nelson has kind of had put together this winning streak, which is just wild because Kyle Nelson was about to go on just a bad losing streak when he fought Choi, and then there was a point deduction, and then it turned into a draw, so it wasn't a loss for Kyle Nelson, and then he comes back and goes on a streak and ends it with a win over Bill Algeo his last time out. So Bill Algeo, he's a tall dude for 145. He's a karate type of striker. He's going to throw a ton of volume. He's got pretty decent takedown defense. He will mix in a takedown here and there for himself, but most likely he's just going to want to stand and strike you, run around the outside and keep his range. Choi, more of a power puncher type of guy. He's a guy that came into the UFC a long time ago, and I don't think his last win is like forever ago. He was on a 3-fight losing streak, then picked up the draw. So he hasn't had a win in a long time, which makes it really tough to take Choi for an early pick. And I don't think I'm going to do it. But there is a path to victory there. Bill Algeo is older. And I don't know. Once you get 35, 36, you start to slow down. He's getting rocked by Kyle Nelson. I know Kyle's got some power, but I just don't think Kyle Nelson's... Kyle Nelson's a big dude, though. For featherweight, he's a big dude. I will give him that. Choi is not as big as Kyle Nelson. So I think Bill Algeo should probably be able to skirt his way around the outside, pick his shots, do what he does, and Choi picks up another L. So I'll take Bill Algeo for an early pick. Kurt Holobaugh, Kanan Kruschewsky. Kurt, one of these dudes, Ultimate Fighter. No reason that he should be in the UFC right now other than to, maybe get in some good graces with Kurt for whatever reason. It almost seems like... he won. He won the Ultimate Fighter Championship, but that season was just terrible. All the fighters on that season were bad. They're bad. At least this season, the fighters on the Ultimate Fighter are they're okay. Last season, the McGregor season, just old dudes that have no business coming back into the UFC. For what? They're not going to beat anybody good. They're just there to fill spots on Apex cards. It almost seems like that's what they wanted. Well, here we are. Kurt Holobaugh at the Apex on a main card. The dude's 39, 37? He's old. I think he's 1-4 in the UFC. But he has decent skills, man. He has good boxing. He's got quick hands for being how old he is. And he has some scary jiu-jitsu on the ground. His last fight against Trey Ogden, we talked about earlier, he just got wet blanketed. Couldn't do much. He was getting taken down and just couldn't get off his back. I don't think that's going to be a problem here against Kanan Kruschewsky, because Kruschewsky doesn't really have a dynamic type of striking. He's got to just kind of hands here. He just kind of bounces. He's going to walk you down. He's a bit stiff. That's really what I picked up when I watch him. He's a bit stiff and he's a little bit slow. He's like a little bit behind the action. And you could really see it in the Elvis Brenner fight. He was just behind every action and Elvis Brenner was just stunting on him. Now, Kurt Holobaugh is not going to be as dynamic as Elvis Brenner, but I do think Kurt can put together some combinations. I think it comes down to if Kurt can take the shots from Kruschewsky, being how old he is, which, I don't know. I mean, I would say he can. He hasn't really been like a chinny old type of fighter. So actually, I think I'm going to go with Kurt Holobaugh because I don't know that Kenny Kruschewsky has really fought that anybody good, and I don't really think he's that good. He's just walks you down. It's pretty. He leaves a lot of openings too. Like Elvis Brenner was hitting it with everything, and Kurt can hit you, man. He can hit you. So I'm going to take Kurt Holobaugh for an early pick, man. But this is just a disgusting one. Moving on, we got Steve Garcia and Sungwoo Choi. Mean Steve Garcia, man. I think this dude might be one of my favorite fighters to watch. I love me a Steve Garcia fight. Because he's just all go, all gas, no breaks. He's just going to go in there and try to take your head off. He's coming off 3 straight knockout victories. All of them were just, they're brutal. Like what he did to, what's his name? Melky Costa? Left him in a pool of his own blood. And Melky Costa was on a single leg on, Chris Tione, I think it was? He's on a single leg on Chris Tione for a good 15 seconds. Melky Costa didn't know where the fuck he was. And then before that, knocks out Shayla Nurdembeke with like a liver shot. I think he knocked him down a couple times. A liver shot and just a real nice left hand. And then before that, just put the ass whooping of the century on Chase Hooper in like 90 seconds. Knocked him down like 3 times. What I'm getting at here is that Steve Garcia used to fight at lightweight. He goes down to featherweight. He's a big dude. And he hits hard. And Sungwoo Choi has been knocked down I think he's been knocked down every single fight in his last 3 fights. If you get knocked down by Steve Garcia, you're probably not going to get back up. And if you do, he's probably going to knock you down again because he is relentless. And I love relentless strikers with big power. And I think Steve Garcia gets this one done. Smooth sailing. Round 1 KO. Easy money for Steve. Mean Steve Garcia. Give me Steve Garcia for an early pick, man. I like him. He's just a nasty dude. The only real worry is that one hiccup he had against Mahashate where he got knocked out. But that's the only time he's been knocked out. And I don't think Sungwoo Choi is good enough defensively to not get hit by Steve, and I don't think he's good enough on the feet to like avoid it and then capitalize. We'll see, but I think Steve Garcia is going to be my early pick. Brad Tavares, Jung Young Park, the Iron Turtle, coming back after his first loss in a while to Andre Muniz, where he got taken down a bunch, just wet blanketed. And Jung Young Park's usually the guy that wants to take you down and do your work there, but he just faced a massive dude in Andre Muniz. Andre Muniz just wet blanketed the shit out of him, and Jung Young Park looks small in that cage with Andre Muniz. Brad Tavares, older dude, but he's still doing it. I mean, he's not picking up a ton of wins, but he's facing good competition. And I think Brad Tavares might be the best fighter that Jung Young Park's ever faced, man. Like, Jung Young Park, he's beaten terrible dudes. Like Joseph Holmes, Dennis Talulin. What was the other one? Albert Duraya. Like, these are guys he should probably beat. You know, like Brad Tavares at least has solid takedown defense. He's got solid striking. The only question would be his chin, but it's like his chin has always been good. It's always been good. It's just the last, 2 out of 3 fights he's had, he got chinned. But that's Gregory Rodriguez and Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva hits like a truck. He's got, 20-some knockouts on his record? And Gregory Rodriguez he's a unit, bro. He should probably be a light heavyweight. He's that big. He's that built. He hits that hard. So I don't know that Jung Young Park is going to be laying massive bombs on Brad Tavares. And if he can't do that, and he can't get the takedowns because Brad Tavares' takedown defense is so good, then it's a striking battle. And I think Brad Tavares might be the cleaner striker. You know, Jung Young Park might have a little bit more volume. That's where he could probably win this fight if it is on the feet, just by landing a bunch of volume and just being active. But I got to take Brad Tavares for an early pick, man. I think this is one where Jung Young Park, they give him a pass for that loss to Andre Muniz because it was a split decision, and he did some good work there. He's a workhorse. I will give him that. But he just doesn't have the power to make Brad respect him. I don't think he does. So I'm going to take Brad Tavares for an early pick. All right, main event, Raul Rosas, Chiwiwi, Verna Jandiroba taking on Amanda Lemos. And it comes down to one thing. Actually, two things. Actually, no, it's one thing. It's one thing. It comes down to one thing. If Verna Jandiroba's cardio can hold up for 5 rounds, and maybe she don't even need it, because I think Verna Jandiroba gets her takedowns here against Lemos, because Lemos has really poor takedown defense. If you remember her fight against Wei Li, she was getting taken down easily, getting smothered easily by Wei Li. And Wei Li is a good wrestler, very good wrestler. But I think Verna Jandiroba is a different type of wrestler. Now, I will say this. Wei Li's got a lot better striking than Verna Jandiroba. But Verna, she gets you to the ground. She just sticks to you, bro. She just sticks to you. She's strong. She's got the Raul Rosas Jr. just stick to you type of thing. I wouldn't want that thing sticking to me. Good Lord. Where is she looking? I don't know. I think Verna Jandiroba should probably get her to the ground and do her work there. But on the feet, obviously, Lemos, better striker. She got big power. She's explosive. I think she's a really good boxer, man. She has really, really clean combinations, really clean hands. But another thing we go back to is her fight against Mackenzie Dern. She should have won that fight, bro. Like, what are you doing? She rocks her on the feet, and then she follows her to the ground. Mackenzie Dern's covering her face. She's literally covering her face like she doesn't want to get hit again. She falls to the ground, and Lemos goes down to the ground with her to let her recover. What are you doing? Let her stand back up and just piece her up again. And not only that, she's trying to take down Mackenzie Dern. What are you doing? That is some of the stupidest thing I've ever seen. She should have won that fight. She did not because she was dumb. Straight up. Actually, no, I think she won that fight. I don't know. I can't even remember. But yeah, I think Verna Jandiroba gets this one done. She gets her takedowns and does her work there. She could probably find an early sub, or if her cardio checks out, she could win a very, very boring decision. Those are the early picks. Stay tuned to the channel for the official picks. If you haven't yet, watch my UFC Denver vlog. It's on the YouTube channel from this past weekend. We're going to Jake Paul, Mike Perry in Tampa later this week for the fight on Saturday. We're going to put out a vlog for that, so stay tuned for that. Best Bet show towards the end of the week. Appreciate y'all. Till next time, AJ Picks.